We on Fire Sports Podcast, The Spot, season number 4, episode number 12. First and foremost, man, I hope you guys had a great weekend as we had a full slate over the weekend in the sport landscape. So we're trucking along in the fall. We're definitely in a Halloween week. If you guys celebrate Halloween, definitely be safe. Get your costumes and your candy on deck. Know I'll be on deck serving the kids and also too taking my youngin' out to get some candy out here on Halloween. And it's definitely been Halloween early for some teams across the National Football League, as the New York Jets, they took another L over the weekend against the New England Patriots, and this team falls to 2-6 on the season. Aaron Rodgers, a 40-year-old quarterback, looked like he's going on 50, man. And this is a team that they put it out there that they're in the darkness right now, and sometimes when you go in the darkness, you don't come out of the darkness. And this is a team that fired Robert Saleh a couple weeks ago, and trying to make moves, bringing in Devontae Adams. And at the end of the day, man, you got to have leadership and camaraderie in the locker room, man, to pull off victories in the National Football League. That's what makes it a great competitive sport. It looks like the Jets hadn't figured that out so far this season. We'll definitely get into them a little bit more in depth later on. We have my Chicago Bears, man. Oh, my Lord, man. My Chicago Bears, man, they lose on a Hail Mary to the Washington Commanders up in Washington. Battle of the first and second overall pick in the NFL draft. Jaden Daniels and Caleb Williams. And I was stoked for this game. I'm just going to go ahead and put it out there. That Caleb Williams, a lot of people saying the Bears may have made a mistake. They should have got Daniels, he the MVP of the league. Came in the game nicked up, with a rib injury. And so I didn't think this game was going to be easy by any stretch of the imagination, but I didn't see my Bears, one, putting up a donut in the first half, and second, losing on just a Hail Mary that, oh, man, it's like getting kicked in the stomach. So, man, that was, exciting over the weekend. We also, too, had the World Series jump off. The World Series is definitely in the fold. We got a classic matchup between the New York Yankees and the Los Angeles Dodgers. And I like classic matchups, especially in baseball. They dying for publicity right now. Still a great sport. I'm still a baseball head, even though we don't get into it real in-depth on here all the time. I'm definitely in tune to Major League Baseball. As right now, jumping it off, the Dodgers are up 2-0 as we dropping this right now. We got game 3 kicking off. Looks like the Dodgers got a lead in game 3. We'll see if they're able to hold on and go up 3-0 in the World Series. We also had some unveiling on Sunday, man, as the Miami Heat definitely paid homage to Dwayne Wade. To me, he's the greatest player in Heat history. Chicagoan, native Chicagoan, got an opportunity to see him play in high school as well, representing Riches out in Oak Lawn. And, proud of DWADE career. World champion, Olympian, definitely still on the scene, man, part owner. Just getting it on out there, man, Dwayne Wade. So shout out to him. And it was a huge situation. As Pat Riley had an emotional speech. Definitely always good to hear the Godfather, Pat Riley, get on the mic, man. And it was a great ceremony for Dwayne Wade. But then they unveiled the statue. And, I was hearing rumblings about this. I had to go back and watch the ceremony on Sunday. I was definitely tuned into the National Football League on Sunday, obviously. And when I went and looked at the ceremony and they draw back the curtain on the statue, man, I'm just like everybody else. Like, man, that do not look like D-Wade. And so it went from a good moment to a moment of, come on, man, this D-Wade, man. This is Wade County, man. You got to get the man face right, man, on a statue, man. And so I'm not sure what happened. Boy, was it funny. People been roasting Dwayne Wade since they unveiled it. He's been good-natured about it, man. It's, like I said, a big-time accomplishment. But, yeah, when I saw it, I'm like, man, I think that looked more like Dwayne Wade Sr. than Dwayne Wade, man. But definitely, man, we had a, nice little sporting landscape. College football definitely getting into play. Travis Hunter looking outstanding. Looks like he got an inside track for the Heisman. It's Colorado moving along, man. Prime got this team bowl eligible. And so, definitely, college football kicking off. I can't wait to the unveiling of the 12 team, the first unveiling of the 12 team slate in the playoffs, as they got the look coming up, I believe, in about another week or so. Definitely the first unveiling of the 12 teams so far that'll be in throughout the season. So that's definitely ratcheting it up. And so definitely, man, I appreciate you guys tuning in. Definitely, if you're first time listening, we kick it real hard on here, man. Straight talk, no chaser. Hot takes across the sport landscape. Definitely check us out on YouTube at We On Fire Sports. And we're going to get right into this thing, man, here on We On Fire Sports Podcast. The Spot. Welcome back as we get into week number 8 in the National Football League season. And man, it seemed like it was a couple weeks ago that the season started. We're already at week number 8, halfway through the NFL season. And there's some teams now that's starting to show a little something across the National Football League. There's some teams that came into the season with high hopes, and it's not looking real good for their organizations. And we go back to Thursday night. No, it seemed like it was an eon ago. And we had the Los Angeles Rams knock off the Minnesota Vikings as the Rams won this game 30-20. The Rams, there was a lot of questions around this organization. You had Puka Nacua out for a period of time. You had Cooper Kupp out for a period of time. And this team obviously struggled with them out of the lineup. You know, the offense has been a one-man show with Kyron Williams. He's had an outstanding season so far. And you look at Sean McVay. You know, Sean is a fighter, man. You know, I knew that the Los Angeles Rams and Les Snead, the GM of the Los Angeles Rams, I knew they weren't going to let go of the rope. You know, I think at the end of the day, you know, things look a little bright when you have, you know, one of the best wide receiver combos in the league coming back virtually at the same time. You know, you look at the Minnesota Vikings, they were a team that was, you know, riding high through the early part of the season, through the first month of the season. You know, they were undefeated football club. And Kevin O'Connell, the head coach, and, you know, you have a situation where the defense with Flores was playing outstanding, Sam Darnold on a redemption tour, and you know, they came down to earth. They've lost 2 games in a row. You know, the Rams, you know, coming into this football game, I knew their offense was going to rev up a little bit with those 2 guys coming back, obviously. And it was a situation for me, it was a litmus test for Minnesota for me. Meaning that these are the type of games that if you're going to get into the playoffs and be considered a legitimate contender, these are the type of games you have to win. The games against teams that don't have a winning record. You know, you got to, you know, put those wins in the bank if you're a solid organization and, you know, you have high hopes of playing deep into the playoffs this season. So, once again, man, the Rams won this game 30-20. Justin Jefferson, you know, he did his thing at 115 yards, you know, out there on the field. And Kyron Williams, once again, he had an outstanding game, almost had 100 yards and a touchdown. Matt Stafford looking amazing, threw 4 touchdowns against this Minnesota Vikings defense. And so we'll see what it do moving forward for both these organizations. You know, the Rams are trending up so far. Looks like Minnesota, some of the air's been let out of the balloon. They're in one of the hardest divisions in the National Football League. And so we'll definitely see, man. And we mosey on to a game that, you know, I was very intrigued in watching. Because I had a feeling that both these quarterbacks and both of these offenses had a situation where it was going to be a high-scoring football game. And I'm talking about the Philadelphia Eagles taking on the Cincinnati Bengals. Bengals starting off slow once again on the season. I mean, that's just how they get down over the last couple of years with Zach Taylor. And you had the Eagles, a team that, you know, a lot of people, you know, was real hot on Nick Sirianni and the decisions that this team has made, you know, dropping that game to the Atlanta Falcons earlier in the season. And you look at this team, came in, big time win for them, 37-17. You know, Jalen Hurts looking like Jalen Hurts, not turning the football over, 3 TDs on the ground. I mean, he just looked like the big-time version of Jalen Hurts that played in the Super Bowl a couple of years ago. And once again, as I mentioned, they came in and steamrolled the defense of the Cincinnati Bengals. This is a defensive unit that's been straight hot garbage the last, say, pretty much the whole season. I ain't even gonna front. And so, at the end of the day, Cincinnati, they dropped to 3-5 on the season. You know, I thought that once again for Cincinnati, the offense, you know, which I think is the power dynamic of this football club. Once you only put up 17 points, you're not going to beat a lot of teams in the National Football League. And so the Eagles riding high. A.J. Brown had a decent game, 84 yards in the air. Saquon Barkley getting you a bill on the ground. Devontae Smith, a touchdown reception for him and 85 yards. So I'm liking what I'm seeing. They go to 5-2 on the season. I like what I'm seeing from the Eagles. They were a team that, man, if you was down with me last season, even though the ceiling was falling, I still had, good hopes for this team as they fizzled out, losing to Tampa Bay in the wild card game in Tampa last season. But looks like this team is heading in the right direction. Definitely some of the heat on Nick Sirianni is going to be, moved to the side a little bit. And so we'll see what the Eagles do moving forward for the rest of the season. And this was a game, I'm not going to front coming up, man, that I just knew, and I'm glad I didn't bet on this game. And I'm talking about the Baltimore Ravens and the Cleveland Browns. And I just knew that the Ravens was going to steamroll the Browns. Jameis Winston getting the start for the Cleveland Browns. Jameis, I got love for Jameis, man. But Jameis can be a turnover machine. I thought it was going to be a good situation for the Ravens defense to step up because they've not been playing good football so far this season. And they dropped the dud, man, losing 29-24. As I mentioned, Baltimore had been riding high the last 3 weeks. A lot of people say that this is the best team in the National Football League. I still thought they had some deficiencies on the defensive side of the football, and it came back to bite them. Jameis Winston living his best life with 3 TDs, throwing over 300 yards on the game. And, Tillman, the wide receiver, this guy just coming out of the blue, caught 2 touchdown receptions in this game as well. Derrick Henry, he had, a pedestrian type of game. A lot of backs will take 73 yards and a touchdown on the ground. But for Derrick Henry, he's been Superman so far this season, probably the leading MVP candidate of the year so far. Had a, pretty okay game. And I just think that for Baltimore, this is a lesson learned. And that's the beauty of the National Football League, especially when you get into the divisional games, which a lot of teams across the league now are in the divisional fold. You're going to have games like this. You can throw the record out of the window. We had to return, obviously, of Nick Chubb on the Cleveland side. Man, it's good to see Nick back. He's had a long career with injuries and great play mixed in that. And so I was glad to see, he was able to get back onto the football field. And the next game coming up, man, we had a game that I had a feeling it was going to get out of hand. And boy, was I right. And I'm talking about the Detroit Lions taking on the Tennessee Titans as the Lions was able to steamroll the Titans 52-14. Yeah, the Lions so far, man, they riding high, 6-1 on the season with the win. I just think that for them, they play a brand of football that if you're a team that won, if you don't have the same talent level as them in execution, you can definitely get blowed out messing with Detroit. So definitely Detroit stand up in this. They lead the division right now, the NFC North, which I believe is the best, division in the National Football League so far. And it looks like the Lions, man, last year, as we all know, got to the NFC Championship game, fell up just short, gave away a huge lead to the San Francisco 49ers, and it looks like Dan Campbell has this team on the right track. The Titans, man, there's not too much to say about the Titans. Mason Rudolph, try to play a game type of football game, man, but it just wasn't enough as the Lions was able to run on the ground as well with Jahmyr Gibbs having 127 yards. We did have a pop-up of Calvin Ridley. This man was extremely frustrated a couple weeks ago, and rightfully so. He had 143 yards in the air for him. So it was good to see him in the fold on the offense, but the defense was straight hot garbage as the Tennessee Titans fall to 1-6 on the season. Then we had another return, as we were talking about Nick Chubb just a little bit earlier. Another guy that returned to the football field is Tua Tagovailoa for the Miami Dolphins as they took on the Arizona Cardinals. And to me, this was a game with 2 dynamic quarterbacks. One that's been playing inconsistent to me all season long, which is Kyler Murray. Just been up and down all season for me. And, Tua coming back, we wasn't going to, see Tua, scrambling out of the pocket. I knew he was going to be a guy that was going to maintain his pocket presence as much as he could in this football game. Dolphins fall up just short. Him and Tyreek Hill did a little bit of business on the weekend as well. It was good to see Tyreek, catch more than 1 or 2 balls on the game. Ainchain had a great game at the backfield of the Miami Dolphins. And Kyler Murray, man, throwing for 300 yards and 2 TDs. Big time on the ground running the football for them. And it was a huge win for them, man, as, they were able to hit a walk-off field goal and take that game home for them, man. And so the Cardinals, they improved to 500 on the season. The Dolphins dropped to 2-5 on the season. And this is a team that, last year, obviously they made the playoffs. They lost to the Kansas City Chiefs in Kansas City. There's been a lot of teams in the NFL that then took a L, going up in Kansas City around playoff time. And, dynamic, offenses, that was the, repertoire for the Miami Dolphins. They were a team that optimistic on the defensive end. Obviously, with Tua being out, and his return from the concussion, it was huge with them dropping some football games. I just didn't think that, to me, Miami didn't prepare as far as a backup quarterback situation, knowing the history of Tua and the concussions. And they paid the price for it this season. And like I said, they dropped to 2-5. Looks like that AFC East is opening up for the Buffalo Bills by the week, as we had another AFC East matchup aforementioned, and that's the New England Patriots taking on the New York Jets. A lot of people, have been up and down on the Jets. They've had a horrendous season so far, a scary season as we approach, the great end of October and Halloween. And it's been one of those thriller nights for the Jets all season long, as they drop this game to the New England Patriots 25-22. And you look at the stats from the New York Jets. Aaron Rodgers throwing 2 touchdowns, man, over 230 yards. He still hasn't eclipsed 300 yards in 3 seasons for him. One of them obviously was out for injury. And there's been a lot of talk around New York. Obviously, they fired Robert Saleh. They moved on from him. They bring in Devontae Adams from the Las Vegas Raiders. Link him up with the Jets. This is a team that, got a dual running back situation with Breece Hall. And got the youngin behind him, playing good football for them, and Braylon Allen. And so this is a team that, to me, I'm not going to say this was a trap game, because the record of the New York Jets coming to this football game and being 2-5 ain't no game a trap game. You got to win every football game at this point, especially with 5 L's coming into this week. And they dropped the dub. Man. And this is a team that they just devoid leadership. And there's been a lot of people that's been on the neck of Aaron Rodgers. And I'm one of them to agree. Because at the end of the day, and this is the thing that we all kind of get lost in the sauce on. How many athletes we've seen at 40 years old play at a high level? We haven't seen that a lot. Now, the National Football League was spoiled by Tom Brady. Shout out to my man Mercedes Lewis, 40 years old, for my Chicago Bears, a tight end. So we seen guys, hit 40. But at the end of the day, they're not the guy that drives the bus at that age. And the only guy we've ever seen do that was Tom Brady. So this is an anomaly. And there's no disrespect to Aaron Rodgers. I put it out there. I'm a Bear fan. About our relationship with the Green Bay Packers. That goes without saying. But at the end of the day, when you have a guy that, to me, we're just going to call it as I see it. This guy's a diva. And to me, he lacks leadership skills. He's cool with a couple guys on the team and they're his buddies. But at the end of the day, when you got a guy that is in the age frame of Aaron Rodgers, and you see this guy missing training camps and things of that nature, and those are bonding periods for the younger players who look up to you on the football club, you had one foot out, man. You're not fully vested. And this is what happens. You go to a 2-6 record on the season. I'm gonna put a little dirt on the grave. Now, I'm not gonna sit here and say that the season is completely over, but the New York Jets is on life support, meaning that the plug can be pulled at any moment, meaning that they drop another game, it's pretty much a wrap. This team could be out of the playoff race before we even get into November, man. And that's a situation for a city that had high hopes of this football club, and it's just been all bad so far this season. For the Patriots, man, it was a good win for them. They improved to 2-6 on the season. Obviously, the New England Patriots, they rebuilding, man, so I'm not going to really get into them too hard. You had Drake May that went out in this game. He had just got the starting job, went out. Jacoby Brissett came in like a veteran, held the fort down, and they was able to pull off a win, man. So for the Jets, it's another nightmare week. At the end of the day, you point the finger at Aaron Rodgers and the entire organization, because at the end of the day, they thought that they can pick up some magic in a bottle with Aaron Rodgers. And at the end of the day, when you have a guy that age, is that you just don't know. You just don't know what you really have, especially a guy coming off big time injury with the Achilles. And so we'll see what the Jets do moving forward. As I mentioned earlier, I think this division, the AFC East, is inching closer to the Buffalo Bills week by week. Another game that is a divisional matchup, and we had the Atlanta Falcons taking on the Tampa Bay Bucks. Tampa Bay, they had a rough stretch last week, losing their wide receiver combo in Godwin and Evans. And Godwin out for the season. Evans looks like he'll be back in a few weeks. And this is a game that the Bucks a couple weeks ago, they was riding high. He was riding high. They was looking like they were in contention to win the division. That's still not over with, but they lost this game to the Falcons 31-26. And Kirk Cousins, got this team 5-3 on the year. Threw 4 touchdowns in this game. And Kurt is a guy that's notorious for getting hot and going through big time stretches. And for the Atlanta Falcons, that's exactly what they need out of Kirk Cousins, especially in this division. That's a winnable division. I think it's a competitive division. I think it's a 3-team division, obviously. But, I think that at the end of the day, whenever you can knock off the Bucks, and that's their second victory against the Bucks so far this season, so they sweep the season series with them. And so it's high hopes in Atlanta, man. It's high hopes in Atlanta. Like I said, they got a quarterback, Bijan Robinson. Had an average, day. Shout out to Kyle Pitts, too. Because Kyle Pitts has been playing some good football over the last 3 weeks. I mean, he's looking like that tight end that the Atlanta Falcons, when they drafted him in the top 10 a couple years ago, that's what they was looking forward to. And he's been playing some big-time football for them, definitely. So shout out to Kyle Pitts and Rasheem Morris. He's a guy that a lot of people didn't think that he was going to get the job in Atlanta. There was a lot of rumors about, Bill Belichick going to Atlanta and Arthur Blank moving in another direction. So far, so good through the first 8 weeks of the season for the Atlanta Falcons. Once again, they moved to 5-3 on the season. And this next game, this was a game that one of these teams, man, is just, I just got a funny feeling that the head coach of this football team is probably going to be the next coach that's, get on the guillotine. And it's the Green Bay Packers against the Jacksonville Jaguars. As the Packers win this game 30-27. They improved to 6-2 on the season. The Jaguars fall to 2-6 on the season. And this is a game that Jordan Love looked like he sustained an injury in this football game. So hope the best for him. Looks like he's going to be week to week with a groin injury. But the Packers, they were able to handle business. Tucker Kraft caught a touchdown catch for them. They were moving the ball around. And most importantly, they got balanced again with Josh Jacobs. Having 127 yards on the ground and 2 touchdowns. I thought that they played a good pace on offense. And Jacksonville is a team that they're notorious for giving up 30 pieces and more. And so it was kind of what I expected coming in. The Jaguars, though, they fought tight, man. Like I said, they only lost by a field goal. Trevor Lawrence had 300 yards and 2 touchdowns on the day. But at the end of the day, he's the number 1 pick in the draft a couple years ago. I mean, he's the golden boy. I had an opportunity to watch this young man play in high school, man, from Cartersville, Georgia. Not too far from my recording location. So, he's a guy that, has been, as I mentioned, the golden boy from Clemson, moving on to the league. But the Jaguars, man, it's just a situation where their team is just unbalanced. Their defense is hot garbage. They put a lot of pressure on the offense to make plays. Shout out to Brian Thomas Jr. as well. He got a little nicked up in this game, but he caught a touchdown, had 60 yards in the air. He's looking like he's the next guy in Jacksonville for the wide receiver position. And, for the Packers, they're in a tough division. So it's a big time win for them to bank. And, they move forward as they get more into divisional play as well moving forward. And the Jacksonville Jaguars, man, is pretty much at this point is week to week as far as if they move on from Doug Peterson down there in Duval County in Jacksonville. So we'll see what their situation gets about in the next couple of weeks for them. And we had another divisional matchup. And I love divisional matchups in the National Football League because these games are always going to be close football games. And we had the Indianapolis Colts losing to the Houston Texans 20-23. Houston, the situation where, first of all, we got Diggs going out with a knee injury. Not sure the severity of it, as spitting game on this podcast right now, man. I'm not sure what's going on with Tavon Diggs, but it's a situation where the Houston Texans, they've been winning football games they're supposed to win, especially at home. They undefeated so far at home, 6-2 on the season. I thought C.J. Stroud, he played just good enough for them to win this football game, and sometimes that's all what you need. Joe Mixon had a touchdown in this game, looking like OG Joe Mixon so far for them. Taylor for the Indianapolis Colts had 100 yards and a TD on the ground, but to me, they got snake bitten by Anthony Richardson, man. And I'm just gonna go ahead and put it out there, man. I think that Joe Flacco definitely should be the starting quarterback for the Indianapolis Colts. I just think at the end of the day, a lot of organizations, and it's usually the bad organizations, they roll a quarterback out there on the field that is simply not ready to play. And at the end of the day, when you got a veteran like Joe Flacco and you're in a situation with you, the Colts, you're 4-4 in the season. You don't know how this thing is going to develop. You may have an opportunity to go to the playoffs. And so you got a good running game. Your receivers, they're young and, they're able to make plays for you, but they got to have a guy to deliver the football to them. And I think at the end of the day, it's time to sit Anthony Richardson and bring in Joe Flacco as a starting quarterback for the Indianapolis Colts. Like I said, once again, for the Texans, they're winning games that they're supposed to win. And that is the key in the NFL, man, as we get into the fall slate of the season. Then we had another game, which this was a game I really couldn't put my finger on. You got the Los Angeles Chargers taking on the New Orleans Saints. Saints, team that started off 2-0. They've dropped 6 in a row, losing 26-8 to the Chargers. And, man, it's just been a hard time for them, man. Spencer Rattler, coming in for Derek Carr. And it just hadn't been a good situation for them on the offensive end. It was stagnant the whole game. And the Chargers, playing ball control at the end of the day, man. Running Dobbins, making sure he get a heavy dose. You had Ladd McConkey, man, is having a good season so far, man. I've been impressed with Ladd McConkey. He had 2 touchdowns on the game for him. And once again, it's all about Jim Harbaugh, man. He's going to try to squeeze the juice out of the orange for this organization and for this team, meaning that they're not going to let go of the rope. And they're in a situation where, being 4-3 on the season, if I'm the Chargers, I'll take that. Meaning that this is a team, to me, that's on the lower end as far as talent across the board. You got Justin Herbert, playing in the ball controlled offense. And, this is a team that, to me, on the offensive end, they're kind of rebuilding on the low key. But, like I said, Harbaugh was able to squeeze out victories, and this was a big-time game and big-time win for the Chargers, man. And once again, as they improved to 4-3 on the season. And this was a game, man, this probably had the worst weather of the week. The Buffalo Bills taking on the Seattle Seahawks out in Seattle, as Buffalo was able to steamroll the Seahawks 31-10 as they improved to 6-2 on the season. The Seahawks, man, they started off nice so far of the season. If we go back through the first 3 weeks of the season, this was an undefeated football club. We obviously had DK Metcalf. He was out, handling a knee situation for him. We'll see what he do moving forward. He definitely was missed with the Seahawks only putting up 10 points. And, Geno Smith, the weather was bad, man. And I think it really affected Geno Smith in this game. As I was taking a look at this football game, it was a tough situation for him, especially without, what I call your get out of jail free card and DK Metcalf downfield. And, the Bills, Josh Allen, man, I think that this offense is starting to grow a little bit. We obviously had the trade of Amari Cooper, bringing him in. He only had 1 reception and 3 yards. And this is one of those games to where, the youngins, Shakur and Coleman, having outstanding games. James Cook doing James Cook business, having 111 yards and 2 touchdowns in the game. He's a guy I predicted before the season that I thought he was going to have a good year, because I think that at the end of the day, Buffalo's offense is getting back balance. He's a young running back, so it's a lot of tread on the tires, and I knew they was going to give him the football, man. So shout out to the Bills as they improved to 31-10 as the Seattle Seahawks fall to 4-4 on the season. Then we had a team that has been surprising me, man. They've been surprising me, man. And so for all the Bronco fans out there, man, you guys have played a good stretch the last month so far of the season as they took on the Carolina Panthers, winning 28-14. As the Broncos improved to 5-3 on the season, the Panthers' worst record in the league, they fall to 1-7 on the year. And Bo Nix, this game was all about Bo Nix, man. 3 touchdowns, 284 yards passing. Obviously, the Carolina Panthers, they're the worst team in the league. But when you're a young organization like the Denver Broncos is with Sean Payton, these are the games that you're supposed to win. And these are games that you put in the bank, and they come back to help you out when you get late in the season. You're a game up or a game out. These type of victories, man, is key towards the end of the season. So shout out to them, man. Not too much to say about the Panthers, man. They just rebuilding, man. Just straight rebuilding, man, in Charlotte, man. Then we had another divisional matchup between the Kansas City Chiefs taking on the Las Vegas Raiders. As the Chiefs, they was able to win this game 27-20. And Patrick Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs, man, living their best life. They 7-0, 4-0 on the road so far this season, which to me is the most impressive thing. Patrick Mahomes, 2 touchdowns, man, for him. Xavier Worthy get into the end zone. Travis Kelce also with a TD. We had Kareem Hunt also with a TD on the ground. And this is a team at the end of the day, the Kansas City Chiefs, man, they just find a way to win. Now, the Raiders made this game close. You know, they made this game close, but I knew at the end of the day when I was looking at this game that the Chiefs was going to prevail. They just always find a way, man, to pull a rabbit out of a hat. And this team that, has had, a gang of injuries. So I just think that I don't want to be disrespectful to Kansas City Chiefs, but I think the 7-0 record is kind of fool's gold, man. Meaning that I think at the end of the day, those injuries at some point gonna get you knocked off, man, in the National Football League. But I'm not gonna throw no shade on the Chiefs, man. They 7-0 in the season. All you gotta do, man, is just win every game that you go out there, and everything is all well, even if you got injuries, man. So shout out to the Chiefs in that. The Raiders fall to 2-6 on the season, man. Antonio Pierce. It's been a long year for the Raiders. It looks like they are rebuilding. Word on the street is they could be interested in Shedeur Sanders. They're a long way from the NFL draft in April, man. So we'll see what it do, man, for the Raiders, man. Once again, as they drop to 2-6 on the season. In this next game, man, coming up, this is a game that very, very hard for me, people. Very, very hard for me, people, as I'm still picking up my mouth off the ground, man. And I'm talking about my Chicago Bears taking on the Washington Commanders, man. As you can hear, my voice is just getting somber, but we're going to keep it 100, man, on here, man. As my Bears lost 18-15, you had the battle of the first and second overall pick in the NFL draft with Jaden Daniels and Caleb Williams. The Bears coming off a bye week as they, did their little London thing, knocking off the Jaguars a couple weeks ago. The Commanders, you had Daniels coming in this game with a rib situation. They obviously was playing at home, so DC was on fire. And this was a game that was an ugly football game. I can just break this game down, but we going to keep it short and sweet on this one. First and foremost, man, the offense for the Bears was shut out through the first half of the football game. Usually when you get shut out in the first half, it's going to be a long game for you. But the Bears fall back in the second half. They was able to put up a TD in the third quarter. And things was looking good. And then my Bears fumbled the football on the 1-yard line. And yeah, man, this is check 'em time right now, man, for Shane Waldron, the offensive coordinator of the Chicago Bears, man. I mean, bro, what are you doing giving the ball to an offensive lineman on the rush, man? At the 1. You got Roshan Johnson, man. You got Swift. I mean, come on, you got Khalil Herbert, man. I mean, you got guys, man, that can get you 1 yard. You can tush push, man, and get that. Why try to be cute and creative? And every time this guy has been cute and creative, we've gotten burnt. Every single time, especially in the red zone. And even though they came back like a G, man, to bounce back from that little snafu, we had the defensive snafu. And I'm just going to say this, man. Matt Eberflus, man. I mean, at the end of the day, bro, everybody have a bad day at the office. So we're going to keep it 100. But Chicago mad as hell at you right now. First and foremost, before we even get to the frail Mary, Hail Mary, man, is that we just basically gave this team 13 yards on the play before. Nobody guarding Terry McLaurin, allowing him to get out of bounds. No timeouts left in the game. You tackle the guy, the game is basically over, inbounds. And so you concede that, first and foremost. And then you got cornerbacks snobbing with the fans, and just a mental breakdown, man, in the end zone as the Commanders was able to pull this game out 18-15, man, as we had Daniels having 326 yards and a touchdown. Played good football, showed good poise, man. Got to put some respect on his name. This football club came out, especially on the defensive end, and played some good football in the first half. They improved to 4-0 at home, too, by the way, the Commanders, man. And so they looking like they're kind of in control right now. The NFC East, obviously outside of Philadelphia, they're in pole position right now. My Chicago Bears, man, it's a tough loss, man. And this is a team that hadn't won a game on the road so far this season, 0-3 on the road. And like I said, this is a situation that with Eberflus and this talent that this team has. The seat gonna get a little hot. But I don't think the Bears will make the move and fire him during the season. So at the end of the day, I'm not gonna fly that kite right now. At the end of the day, it's for the Bears bouncing back and being able to win football games. And Caleb Williams, didn't have a good football game. I thought that the Commanders, they did play good defense, but I thought it was in areas of improvement for us on the offensive end. And Swift had a good game, man, and he had 129 yards on the ground and a touchdown. So at the end of the day, we were able to run the football. It's just the passing game, man. We was just stuck in the mud. And so as my Bears, man, we got to bounce back, man. Bear down, man. Shout out to Bear Nation, man. But it's all about picking up the pieces next week for my Chicago Bears. Then we had a classic matchup. On Sunday Night Football between the San Francisco 49ers and the Dallas Cowboys. A lot of you guys go back to the 90s with these two teams, man, going back and forth, winning 4 world championships between both these organizations in the 90s. Obviously, we had, the situation in the early 80s, but we're a long way from that right now. Meaning that, both of these teams haven't won a championship since the 90s. San Francisco 49ers coming into this game in a mass unit with McCaffrey being out and Deebo Samuel, being out. And just a situation, as I mentioned, man, for the San Francisco 49ers trying to hold the fort down. This was a big time win for them, though, winning this game 30-24. And I just think that at the end of the day, Brock Purdy, he had to have a mistake-free football game, meaning that the last couple of weeks he'd been turning the football over. And for him, obviously, it's a contract year. It's a prove-it year for him. And I just think that Kyle Shanahan, I think he put him in a good position. We obviously had Jordan Mason going out in this game early, but we had Horrendo come in the game, have 85 yards and a touchdown. Seems like, man, they just pull running backs off the street in San Francisco, man, especially with the Shanahan family tree. And for the Dallas Cowboys, man, this team falls to 3-4 on the season. It was actually their first road loss of the season, which is surprising. Obviously we know how terrible they've been at home, but they was undefeated so far on the road. And San Francisco's a tough place, obviously, to go in and try to win a football game. I thought that Dak Prescott, played okay football. And this team is not good enough, roster-wise, for him to play okay football. Obviously they got some injuries on the defensive end and Parsons. And so this team cannot run the football at all. They're a one-dimensional offensive team and a terrible defensive team. And they just constantly give up 30 pieces on the defensive end. And so at the end of the day, I don't think the Dallas Cowboys is a playoff team. I'm not sure if that's a surprise the most. I definitely don't believe it is. And so, they got to pick up the pieces, man. Meaning that at the end of the day, they still 3-4. So they're game away from being 500. But this is a team with the ills that they have. I just don't think that they'll be able to make up for them as we go through the second half pretty much of the season. And that's my look at week number 8 across the National Football League. As we get into fall season, we got Halloween week. And for some teams, the season has gotten a little scarier. And for other teams, man, they looking on the up and up, man. So that's my look across the National Football League in week number 8. We on Fire Sports Podcast, the spot. As we through the midway point of the NFL season, almost the midway point as we through week number 8 of the NFL season. I got to come with my Big 5, my NFL Big 5 power rankings. As once again, we're about halfway through the season. There's some teams that's moving on up in the rankings. There's some teams that's moving down in the rankings. But, I think overall we're kind of getting at that point of the season, especially now with divisional play. There's going to be teams that obviously separate themselves from the rest of the pack, especially in the NFC and the AFC respectively. And we're going to get right into this thing, man. At number 5. This is a team that if you'd have asked a good amount of people last week, a lot of people may have put this team number 1 on their power rankings. There's a lot of people believe that this team is, when they cooking, they're the best team in the National Football League. They got a Superman at quarterback. They got another Superman at running back, and one of the most innovative and tenured head coaches in the National Football League, and that's John Harbaugh. And the Baltimore Ravens coming in at number 5. And as I mentioned, they was a team that was at the top of the heap last week. But when you go into Cleveland in a game that you expect to win, especially with them starting on Jameis Winston, who was the third string quarterback coming in before the week, that's a game that you're supposed to win, especially when you allow, pretty much 30 points put up on you with Cleveland and taking a nail, and you drop down the power rankings for me. And to me, I think the only Achilles heel so far with this team has been on the defensive end of the football. They have been beyond struggling. I mean, just at the end of the day, especially in this game last week, Hamilton, all he had to do was just catch the interception. It dropped right out of his hands. I mean, an easy interception. The game was literally over. Next play, they go right back downfield, long throw with Jameis Winston for a touchdown. And that's how it is in the National Football League. It's any given Sunday. And so I think that, the Baltimore Ravens will be able to pick up the pieces from this situation, against the Cleveland Browns. But right now, I got them at number 5, but they're a volatile football club. They could definitely go back up to power rankings. But right now, I got them at number 5 in my Big 5 NFL power rankings. At number 4, this is a team that a lot of people feel that they're just an enigma, man. Either you are a hard fan of this football club and a frustrated fan and a happy fan at the same time, or you're a team or a person that look at this team and don't think that they're legitimate anymore, think they pretty much have kind of reached their zenith as an organization. And I'm talking about the Philadelphia Eagles. I got the Eagles coming in at number 4. This is a team that, to me, I had confidence in this football club last year when it was falling. And, they made it to the wild card round, man. They got back to the playoffs, but they took an L to Tampa last year in the wild card game. And, this is a team that, had the huge addition of Saquon Barkley coming into the fold. I know he was going to pretty much be a cyborg. He's been a cyborg so far this season for them. It's really been all about Jalen Hurts. And Jalen Hurts, he's been, up and down. The last 2 weeks, he's been good Jalen Hurts. And back to Jalen Hurts that got this team to the Super Bowl a couple years ago. I think that is huge. He had 3 TDs on the ground last week. He back to running again with confidence. And I just think that at the end of the day, once he gets back to, his Jalen Hurts type football, this is a team that's an absolute contender. This is a team that I predicted to actually get back to the NFC Championship game this year, actually. So, we'll see with Philadelphia. The defense is playing some good football, and this team is just kind of rounded into shape kind of slowly on us, man. But I think that they'll be a threat for the second half of the season as things are looking up in Philadelphia, and I got the Eagles coming in at number 4. At number 3, this is a team that, they call it a rough little patch a little bit. Obviously I'm talking about the Buffalo Bills Mafia. And, they look good through the first couple of weeks of the season. They've had some huge losses, from last year's team with Diggs and Gabe Davis. And this was a team that through the first couple of weeks of the season, it looked like they was going to be all right with the youngest, with Shakur and, Coleman. And James Cook doing his thing on the ground, had another outstanding week this week. And so, I just thought that this team, maybe, Josh Allen, he can kind of, first couple of weeks get acclimated with these guys and, don't have to put on the cape as much. And then he got into a couple game situation where he had to put on the cape. And then the Bills said, you know what, man, we need another real receiver in here. They brought in Amani Cooper, big time move for them. Had a good first week, but second week, 1 catch for 3 yards. So he's still getting acclimated to the offense. But this is a team that's winning the games, 1, that they're supposed to win. 2, I think that is big time room for growth in this offense. 3, they're a team that if you look at the AFC East, they pretty much got it on lock. I mean, they got a 3-game lead through the first 8 weeks of the season. So I think that Miami and, New England obviously rebuilding, and the Jets has been a dumpster fire. I just don't think they'll catch the Buffalo Bills. So I think they get back to the playoffs and win the division. And so I got them coming in at number 3. And also, too, their defense is playing much improved so far through the first, month and a half of the season. The defense is kind of trending upward, man. So I got my Bills, or the Buffalo Bills Mafia stand up, coming in at number 3. At number 2, this is a team that, they in the same division as my favorite football team, man, and it's the NFC North. They got a head coach, man, that's a riverboat gambler and a Hulk Hogan enthusiast part-time. Former NFL player, played tight end in the National Football League for a few years. And I'm talking about Dan Campbell, man, in the Detroit Lions. This is a team that plays just old school football. And obviously, Jared Goff, when he got traded from the Los Angeles Rams, a lot of people just thought, his career was just going to be okay. But, they've used him with the chip on his shoulder and playing mistake-free football primarily, and running the football with a two-headed monster and a defense that, even though they lost Hutchinson, and we're not sure when he's going to be back, this is a defense, and Aaron Glenn, the defensive coordinator, that got this team ready to play every single week, and they play hard. And so the Lions, for me, they're in a tough division. Like I said, I think it's the best division in football, but I think they got the right recipe. And so this is a team that can easily, to me, for the rest of the season, go on like a little run, or it's a team that can hit a little turbulence. It just all depends about matchups, especially when they got some big-time divisional games coming up for the Lions. And so I got them coming in at number 2. And they probably been playing as a whole the last 2 weeks, probably the best football in the National Football League, by the way. But there can only be one number 1. And this is a team that has been in pole position at number 1 all season long. This is a team that, if you're not part of their fan base, you can't stand them at this point. They 7-0 on the season. They win ugly, man. They just been winning some ugly football games. Patrick Mahomes has not been Patrick Mahomes. And yeah, I'm talking about the Kansas City Chiefs. This is a team, man, that's had hella injuries, from Rashid Rice to Hollywood Brown to Pacheco to Smith-Schuster being out, last couple of weeks, been nicked up. And it's a team that just keep on going. They just keep on going. They find a way. Travis Kelce is finally, getting back into the more, typical Travis Kelce mode. Mahomes just making the key plays, even though the Raiders last week, they tried to make it a football game. The Chiefs just find a way to win. Andy Reid just find a way to win. And so I got them coming in at number 1, man. I was thinking about maybe a couple weeks ago sliding them down because of the injuries. And that may happen, meaning that they could be undefeated. Potentially, 8-0 or something like that. 9-0. And they may slide down the rankings just simply due to they may be a mass unit at that point. So we'll see, man. So that is my NFL Big 5 power rankings as we move through week number 8 in the National Football League. And that's a wrap, folks. That's a wrap, man. Once again, I definitely appreciate all the love and the feedback. I appreciate your ear. Don't forget to check us out on YouTube at We On Fire Sports. Got that jumped off, man. And, just trying to be out here in the sports landscape. I hope you guys had a great weekend as we have Halloween week coming up a little bit later on this week. Hope you guys definitely enjoy yourself. Enjoy the sport landscape during the week as, the NBA is back into the fold as well. And so I appreciate, once again, all the love and the feedback. I appreciate your ear. We On Fire Sports Podcast. The spot.